With the Pep deal getting absolutely nowhere, supposedly Chelsea have identified Lewis Hall as their ideal left-back target. Cy Phillips Sport tells us that after getting Jordan Henderson, Chelsea are still going in for both Adam Wharton and Alex Scott. After being made available for sale, Liam Delap has multiple suitors in the Premier League. Alonso tells us what he thinks about new signing Maxence Lacroix and returning midfielder Moises Caicedo. And Badiashile has officially been told he is not part of the plans. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And man, this window is just unpredictable, right? So let's get into today's news. Transfer News Live posted this via Cy Phillips Sport from his Substack. Cy Phillips is on a mad one at the moment. Chelsea are keeping a close eye on Lewis Hall's situation at Newcastle United. The Blues remain keen on bringing their former academy graduate back after Manchester United made little progress. Chelsea believe Hall could still be convinced to return and become a key player under Xabi Alonso. So, Lewis Hall kind of feels like he's always been available for the majority of the window, but have things changed a little bit with the untimely departure of Eddie Howe, who has walked away from the club? And I can't remember the Jassel, is it the guy that they're the 38-year-old coach that they're hiring to take over at Newcastle? It looks like Bruno Guimaraes is also getting closer to the Arsenal move. Tonali's already gone. Obviously, they lost Isak. Like, the team that did so well for them for the last few years is just being ripped apart unceremoniously. Absolutely. The team that did them so well and got them into the Champions League over the last couple of years is being unceremoniously ripped apart. And I guess it would kind of make sense that Lewis Hall's stock is quite high and he would be thinking to himself, probably it's time for a move. So look, Lewis Hall, he's wicked, man. Like, it's undeniable, isn't it? He's going to be pricey, man. He's going to cost a lot of money. What I don't know is if the current situation affects the price at all, obviously with Eddie Howe leaving, and maybe he starts to push for a move or something like that. I'm not sure. But you'd have to think Lewis Hall is not going to cost anything less than 60 mil at the moment. But ultimately, really, really good left back. And it actually makes sense when you, like, I did a bit of a deep dive on his stats a little while ago, and his defensive work is really, really good. Like, he was dribbled past so few times. Like, he's really good at not being beaten by his man. And if we've got a Marco Palestra on the right-hand side, then I guess a Lewis Hall actually would make sense, because he could play the left-back position, he could play the wing-back position. He knows the club already, obviously an academy graduate, and yeah, I'd be here for it, man. It wouldn't have been my first choice at the beginning of the window. I really like the look of Maxi Araujo, albeit he got like a lot of cards and maybe has a bit of a disciplinary issue. I think at this point, if we are really looking to upgrade the left back spot, which I guess you'd think we'd have to be, because we haven't replaced Marc Cucurella yet. Pep felt like a bit of a stopgap and definitely wasn't like the highest in terms of quality. And in himself, Pep coming in just made it feel like he was going to create pathways for the likes of Yoro Hato or maybe Giovanni Kenda to play left wing back, or maybe even Valentin Barco to get a shot there as well. But supposedly not if Lewis Hall is the player that we're targeting. It's interesting, outside of this from Cy Phillips, I've seen something saying that Chelsea are obsessed with getting Lewis Hall. Look, I wouldn't be disappointed. I absolutely wouldn't be disappointed. Lewis Hall is a proper player. He's going to cost a lot of money. But it's just like, how much more money can we spend at this point? You know, Cy Phillips has got us. Look, I'm going to get into the other tweets in a minute. Cy Phillips has got us down spending like another 200-300 mil by the end of this window on a lot of players, and the squad is already bloated. So that is definitely something that needs to be considered. But either way, I think Lewis Hall is a great player. We'd be happy to see him in the squad. He is the only one that's reporting on this at the moment, though, truth be told. So it may just be a case of Lewis Hall's agent is putting stuff out there because of the management change and whatever. So look, we'll have to see what happens over the next few days. Maybe Lewis Hall to Chelsea heats up. Manchester United obviously have been credited with an interest for a long time, and they really need to upgrade their left back situation as well. Obviously, Luke Shaw getting towards the twilight of his career, and Patrick Dorgu has been used more of like an attacking player over the majority of the last season. He was bought as a wing back, but they got away from the three at the back when Michael Carrick took over, and he's been playing a lot of left wing. So really interesting one there. Lewis Hall, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like I say, I absolutely wouldn't be unhappy with it. It changes the question now isn't even, would I like to see him in the team? It's just like, what do we do with all of the rest of these players we've got? Let me know what you think in the comments. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, and on we continue with the madness that is Cy Phillips Sub Sport Stack reporting over the last few days. VDYK posted this via the Cy Phillips Sport Sub Stack. I've had it confirmed by 3 top SPTC sources now that, as well as Henderson and Scott, Chelsea are still planning an attempt to sign Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace as well. Absolutely game-changing, the way Alonso would use him too. Look, right... This is getting out of hand, man. This is getting out of hand. Look, you know, get them all. If you bring them all in, and I'll be happy to see them. Of course, I will. But it's just, you know, it's the obvious question, isn't it? It's like all of a sudden, it's like, right, if we bring in Alex Scott and Adam Wharton and Jordan Henderson, then we're going to have to start shipping people out en masse, man. And that almost definitely says Valentin Barco can't be considered as a midfielder. Romeo Lavia probably needs to get a loan. Dario Essigo would still stay for me because he seems like the most natural rotation option for Moises Caicedo. But without being in Europe, I don't know. It's just wild. Alex Scott can play that role as well, to be fair. So it could be Alex Scott kind of can play both positions. And I guess it's like it depends on what you need, right? Adam Wharton is a deep line distributor. Alex Scott is a bit more of a ball carrier, you know, linking the defence to attack that way. Moises Caicedo is going to play almost every single game as long as he's fit and available. And then you've got Jordan Henderson, who's just here for vibes. And everyone loves Jordan Henderson, apparently. So, look, I'm just thinking it's absolutely wild, man. You know, what, 70 mil plus? I've seen that potentially we're preparing a second bid for Alex Scott. We're going to get into that in a second. Adam Wharton, I would think, would probably cost at least 80 million. Like, I know he was being touted as 100 for a little while, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And I also genuinely think part of the reason that Badiashile went to have the conversation with Steve Parish wasn't just about getting the Maxence Lacroix deal over the line. If that was as simple as, because it's 52 mil, do you know what I mean? If that was, that's literally what we paid pretty much for Marco Palestra. So if it was just a case of Maxence Lacroix is going to cost 52 mil and there's nothing else to talk about there, then I don't think that Badiashile needs to get involved in that, does he? But, you know, there's even been a link to Munoz, their 30-year-old right back, who, again, like, great player. I wouldn't be disappointed to see him at all, especially if we're looking at selling Malo Gusto. He plays right wing back really well, good attacking player, you know, and there's obviously the conversation still to be had about Adam Wharton. So look, could we be about to see a huge amount of transfer business being done with Crystal Palace when, you know, we've obviously still got a lot of players to offload as well, so let's keep an eye on that one. Right, so carrying on with the midfield madness, Chelsea Hub posted this via Court Offside. Unrest, Chelsea aren't giving up on Alex Scott. A fresh 70 mil bid is being prepared in hopes of opening talks with Bournemouth. And then Chelsea, that was like the actual news part that he reposted, and then he asked the question, Alex Scott for 70 mil, is that fair market value or is the price too high? Deal or no deal? Look, just talking about the price because Chelsea has asked the question there. I think in a world where Sandro Tonali goes for 80 mil, Mateus Fernandes, who got relegated at 2 teams back-to-back, goes for 85 mil, Elliot Anderson goes for 116. I think based on that, 70 mil for Alex Scott is reasonable at the end of the day. Young, English player, played really well, got Bournemouth into European competition last season. And, you know, I think that the 64 million bid was probably in and around what I would assume a player of that is worth normally. If we pay 70 mil for Alex Scott, if we end up getting it over the line and we pay 70 mil for Alex Scott, who supposedly wants to come to Chelsea and is interested in the Xabi Alonso project, yeah, I think you'd have to count that not as a bargain, but it's not even about getting a bargain at the moment. It's just about not being completely ripped off, isn't it? This is the thing. This is where the market's gotten to now. You know, Yan Diomande to Real Madrid for 100 mil, like, it's just happening everywhere. What is it? PSG want 170 million euros for Barcola. All that be it looks like he's probably going to stay there. Real Madrid said they wanted 160 million euros for a Vinicius Junior who's got 1 year left on his deal. Like I said, I've mentioned already, Elliot Anderson, like, the money's going absolutely wild, man. So in that market, if you can get a player like Alex Scott for 70 mil, then I think at the very least you can consider yourself not getting ripped off. So guys, the midfield situation looks mental, doesn't it? It looks mental because, look, if Reece James is going to play there, he's an option, albeit maybe he's not, maybe, I don't even know. It's going to be interesting to see when these guys start getting back into training. But yeah, you know, so look, let's add all of these up, right? Let's add all of these up. Jordan Henderson through the door, Moises Caicedo, Romeo Lavia, Dario Essigo, Valentin Barco, Reece James, Alex Scott, Adam Wharton. I feel like I've missed someone, but even so, that's eight midfielders for 2 spots. Now, Valentin Barco and Reece James, arguably you could take those out because Reece James can play right centre-back as well, and Valentin Barco obviously can play left wing-back. But Dario Asugo and Romeo Lavia are midfielders. That's just what they do, isn't it? And the same for Jordan Henderson, Adam Wharton and Alex Scott. So that would still leave us with 6 players for 2 spots, which then, if you think, right, okay, we shift on 2 in maybe Dario Asugo and Romeo Lavia on loans or sales, then all of a sudden you've got 4 midfielders for 4 spots, and you've got an extra 2 guys who are versatile, which I guess doesn't sound as crazy, but it is still kind of crazy considering that we've got no Europe next season. Right, so out of the midfield madness and into something a little bit more tangible, we're going to talk about Liam Delap. Transfer News Live posted this via the iPaper. Leeds United, Nottingham Forest and Everton are all interested in Liam Delap. Chelsea value their striker at £35 to £40 million after receiving strong interest from multiple Premier League clubs. Nottingham Forest, Everton and Leeds are all exploring a move, with more clubs expected to join the race. So I think this is pretty good for us because Liam Delap having so many suitors means you'll get the money that you want for him at the end of the day, especially when it's Premier League clubs. Everton are probably credited with the longest standing interest and finished the highest. But Nottingham Forest are going to be an interesting prospect, bearing in mind they've just got Oliver Glasner in, who did amazing with that Crystal Palace team to win them 2 trophies, right? So, albeit Everton may be a little bit more of a comfortable Premier League team to be at the moment. You know, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall went there and did really well. Nottingham Forest may be a bit of an outlier, because they have done really well in previous seasons, albeit not so much last season. But new manager, a lot of change. Like Elliot Anderson isn't the be-all or end-all of their team. Obviously, he was a big part of it, but you would have thought with an Oliver Glasner there, they can still do pretty well. So yeah, Leeds. Don't know so much about Leeds, to be honest. They've just got James Trafford. I haven't been keeping very up on Leeds' transfer business. I know they didn't, finish particularly well last season. But I would have thought that it's an interesting toss-up between Nottingham Forest and Everton, isn't it? Because Everton is like, if you're Liam Delap, Everton have been pretty comfortable. They're not looking to win stuff and outliers and whatever. But you would have thought that they're going to probably finish in the top half of the table based on recent form. But then you got the Nottingham Forest angle, and you're looking at a Glasner who's won 2 trophies with Crystal Palace recently. And Forest do have wealth to reinforce their squad at the end of the day, and they have been buying players this window already. So if I was Liam Delap, I'd probably just go to Everton. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall has kind of shown a pathway that you can go and not do so well at Chelsea, but then move to Everton, get trusted, do pretty well. David Moyes is a very, very experienced Premier League manager, so that's an interesting one there. But you would have thought Forest have probably got slightly loftier heights and they're aiming for a higher. They want to win trophies and Champions League winners in the past. Do you know what I mean? Which is absolutely crazy, but it is true. So Liam Delap, either way, like I say, I think the poignant thing from this is Liam Delap isn't going to struggle to be sold, and we're not going to get lowballed for him, potentially, because there are multiple clubs, at least 3 at the moment, and according to the iPaper, more looking to get involved in the race. So, Liam Delap, how much do you think he's worth? Which club, if you were Liam Delap, which club would you go to out of Leeds, Nottingham and Everton? But I think it's mainly Nottingham and Everton, isn't it? Right, next up, we're going to talk a little bit about what Xabi Alonso has got to say about new and returning players. Pies posted this from an interview that Alonso did. Alonso on Le Croix. I know Maxence from my time in the Bundesliga, but I think his adaptation to the Premier League has been fantastic. He has the attributes and gives us power in the defensive line, and he will have an impact in the line. He loves to defend, and he's strong character. So, waxing lyrical about new defender Maxence Lacroix already, and yeah, I just absolutely love it, man. I think Lacroix is going to be a phenomenal player for us. I think he just instantly comes into our first team and he instantly upgrades it. I think he's pretty much going to put an end to the rotation of centre-back partnerships that we've had over the last couple of years. Last year in particular was wild, man. 10 different centre-back pairings is crazy. Barring injury, you'd have to now think that at the very least it's always going to be Lacroix and Colwill in defence. Colwill, line splitting passes, Maxence Lacroix, astute defending, absolutely love it. And it is interesting as well because was it Mainz he was at before? I can't remember, but obviously Maxence Lacroix was at a Bundesliga club before he moved to Crystal Palace in the first place, so Alonso actually has experience of coming up against him. So an interesting one, albeit it is a target that we identified. It's also one that Alonso probably will have been quite keen to get, because he's seen how he's developed from the player that he played against into the Bundesliga to that really important part of the Crystal Palace first team. Xabi Alonso was also asked about Moises Caicedo, and this was posted via Bobby Vincent. When I saw him yesterday, I've been missing my midfielders because I really admire from outside. You see his quality, his heart, his mentality. I know the Ecuadorian players, they are different, and I had heard a lot. I spoke with him on the phone, but it was first contact, and he's a top player. For me, one of the best holding midfielders in the world, no doubt. And now he's here. Now it's time to start working and helping get improving and getting better. So this is just typifies something that's going to be really interesting for Chelsea fans over the next few weeks, right? Starting to see these players, especially the likes of, Moises Caicedo, Morgan Rogers, Reece James, these guys that have been out of the team for a while, and albeit I really enjoyed watching the preseason game the other day, I'm really looking forward to the Tottenham game tomorrow. But these are the guys that are really going to make the difference. Like, at the moment, Xabi Alonso has been working with his team within his head, thinking Moises Caicedo is going to be in that spot and he's going to have that role. But obviously he's been having to make do at the moment, so he's going to get to see a lot more of his own actual ideas in practice with a player of Moises Caicedo's quality being there already. So find that really, really interesting. Obviously, I just can't wait to see all of the team together with the new signings and everything as well. It's going to be phenomenal. The likes of Moises Caicedo, Maxence Lacroix, Morgan Rogers, all these guys joining up for the pre-season tour. Mwah! It's all coming to fruition. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about Benoit Badiashile. Pice posted this via Fabrizio Romano. Chelsea have informed Badiashile and his agents during the evening that he's not considered part of the project anymore. Napoli are interested. Look, it's, we want to see him go, the same that we want to see Axel Disasi go, and we need to start getting rid of some of these players at all. I do feel bad for any player that is in this position though, right? Because this is how the bomb squad starts, If the problem with doing stuff like this and stuff like this coming out is, for Liam Delap, for instance, loads of clubs want to come in for Liam Delap, so that's absolutely fine. But we aren't having our door knocked down for Benoit Badiashile. And with Chelsea now outwardly being like, you're not part of the project, that just cuts his value down and is going to make him harder to sell. And we've seen what Chelsea have been like with Trevor Chalobah to Como, do you know what I mean? And yeah, okay, maybe it's a bit different because that's pure profit. But at the same time, it doesn't make it easy to sell Benoit Badiashile when you literally put it out there that he's not part of the project anymore. It was obvious. We all kind of knew. But at the same time, Napoli have already shown interest in a loan deal. I just, the one, not the worst thing. The worst thing would be all of these guys stay and they all end up in the bomb squad. But what wouldn't be great is if, like Garnacho, we end up loaning these players out with obligations to buy, but those obligations to buy aren't necessarily met because it is really difficult to negotiate with Italian clubs. Either way, Benoit Badiashile, looks like we're never going to see him play for Chelsea again, and I'm not necessarily sad about that. I think it's a real shame because he was so good in that, that first, 6 months or whatever it was when he joined us at 20 years old. He looked like a proper baller, 40 million euros well spent, it looked like at the time. But he got that first big injury and has just never really managed to kick back on from there. So for his own sake, look, he's 23, 24 years old, still got his whole career ahead of him. He's genuinely still a young player, and it's just a weird one for us because we've had him for so long now, but we got him so young. I hope he goes on and does well. I just hope that Chelsea, after putting this news out basically themselves, or, allowing it to get out, that he's been told he's not part of the project, I hope then that they will let him go for a reasonable price. I hope we don't haggle for the odd million here or there for Benoit Badiashile. It's like we just need to cut some ties because, as I was talking about with the midfield situation earlier, the centre-back situation is similar. How many centre-backs we got on the books now? Like 10? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, especially with no Europe. We really need to start getting these guys out. There's been a lot of interest in Axel Disasi to begin with, and obviously he played at the back end of last season with West Ham. Benoit Badiashile hasn't touched grass in ages, absolutely ages, and he's been injured a lot as well over the last couple of seasons. So if someone comes in, like I saw something seeing that we wanted 30 mil for Benoit Badiashile, it's like, mate, if someone offers you 20, just let him go. Just let him go. Nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there, but I want to know what you think about everything that we've talked about today. Lewis Hall. Is Lewis Hall a real option? Cy Phillips seems to think so. How do you feel about it anyway? I think he looks really good. He's obviously going to be really expensive. It just, it's just one of those, isn't it? Like so many questions now about the how are we going to thin the squad out. Cy Phillips also thinks that we're still going to go in for Alex Scott and Adam Wharton. That seems a little bit wild to me. Like I say, I kind of felt it out a little bit. If you think about the versatility of a Valentin Barco and a Reece James, that leaves you with 6 players for 2 spots, which could realistically become 4 players for 2 spots if you get rid of both Lavia and Esugo. But it's going to be complicated. Liam Delap is wanted by Nottingham Forest, Leeds and Everton. Which club do you think suits him the best? Alonso's really looking forward to working with Maxence Lacroix and Moises Caicedo, and Benoit Badiashile has been informed that he's no longer part of the project. Hopefully we don't hold out for too big of a fee so he can just get gone. Nice one, guys. Thanks very much for sticking around until the end of the video. If you did, and if you made it this far, I want to point you towards a new channel that I have started with Jay. So, me and Jay, obviously, every week now are doing the Talking Chelsea podcast, but these are big, long, 2-hour pieces of content. If you haven't got the time to watch all one of those at once, head over to Talking Chelsea Extra, where we will be releasing shorter cuts from the podcast for your viewing pleasure. Nice one, guys. Thanks very much for sticking around until the end. If you did, I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.